Have you ever wondered why some people spend years learning English yet still hesitate to speak, while others, with far less knowledge, communicate confidently every single day? Surprisingly, the difference is rarely intelligence, talent, or even grammar. More often than not, it's the way they think. Your mindset silently shapes every learning decision you make, from whether you speak up in a conversation to whether you give up after making a mistake. And until that mindset changes, real progress often feels frustratingly slow. Many learners believe that fluency begins with mastering thousands of vocabulary words or memorizing complex grammar rules. But in reality, fluency starts much earlier. It begins inside your mind. The moment you stop seeing English as an exam and start treating it as a daily communication tool, your learning experience changes completely. Instead of fearing mistakes, you begin collecting experiences. Instead of chasing perfection, you begin building confidence one conversation at a time. Think about a child learning to speak. A child doesn't wait until every sentence is grammatically perfect before saying the first word. They make mistakes, repeat themselves, mispronounce words, and slowly improve through constant use. Yet as adults, we often expect ourselves to speak perfectly from day one. That unrealistic expectation becomes the biggest obstacle. Every small mistake feels like failure, every pause feels embarrassing, and every comparison with fluent speakers makes us question our own ability. This is where most learners unknowingly trap themselves. They spend more energy worrying about speaking than actually speaking. They replay old conversations in their minds, criticize every pronunciation mistake, and convince themselves that everyone else is judging them. The truth is, most people are paying attention to your message, not counting your grammatical errors. Communication is about being understood, not about sounding perfect. Another hidden challenge is comparison. Social media makes it easy to watch someone speaking flawless English and assume they reached that level effortlessly. What we don't see are the hundreds of hours they spent practicing, making mistakes, forgetting words, and starting over. Comparing your first steps with someone else's years of experience only creates unnecessary pressure. Every learner has a different journey, and your progress should only be measured against the person you were yesterday. Instead of asking yourself, why am I not fluent yet? Try asking a better question. Am I improving more than I was last month? That single shift changes everything. Learning a language isn't about winning a race. It's about becoming slightly better every single day. Small improvements may seem invisible at first, but over weeks and months, they create remarkable results. Perhaps the biggest myth in language learning is the belief that studying longer automatically means learning faster. In reality, consistency always beats intensity. 15 focused minutes every day will often produce better long-term results than studying for 3 hours once a week. Your brain learns best through regular exposure, not occasional overload. That's why successful learners build habits instead of depending on motivation. Motivation comes and goes, but habits continue even on days when you don't feel inspired. So before searching for another grammar book, another vocabulary list, or another study app, ask yourself one important question. Is my mindset helping me grow, or is it quietly holding me back? Because once your thinking changes, your actions change. And when your actions change, your English begins to improve in ways you never thought possible. Once you develop the right mindset, the next step is turning English into a natural part of your everyday life. This is where many learners make another common mistake. They believe learning only happens while sitting at a desk with a textbook. As a result, English becomes something that belongs only to study time. But language doesn't grow inside notebooks. It grows through regular use. The more naturally English fits into your daily routine, the faster your brain begins to recognize it as a normal means of communication rather than a difficult subject. You don't need hours of free time to improve. In fact, the most successful learners often make progress through small moments that most people ignore. While making breakfast, you can describe what you're doing in simple English. During a walk, you can think about your plans for the day using short sentences. Before going to sleep, you can spend 2 minutes talking about how your day went. These tiny habits may seem insignificant, but they gradually train your brain to think directly in English instead of translating every word from your native language. Another powerful habit is learning to speak before you feel ready. Most people spend months reading articles, watching videos, and memorizing vocabulary, yet avoid opening their mouths because they fear making mistakes. The problem is that speaking is a practical skill. Just as reading about swimming cannot teach you how to swim, learning grammar alone cannot make you a confident speaker. Your mouth, ears, and brain must work together repeatedly before speaking starts to feel natural. Of course, making mistakes can feel uncomfortable, but every mistake contains valuable information. Instead of asking, "Why did I fail?" ask yourself, "What did this mistake teach me?" That simple question transforms frustration into progress. Confident learners don't become fluent because they avoid mistakes. They become fluent because they learn from every conversation, every correction, and every imperfect sentence they produce. There's another habit that quietly slows down thousands of learners: negative self-talk. Many people constantly repeat phrases like, "My English is terrible," "I'm too slow," or "I'll never become fluent." At first, these sentences seem harmless, but over time they shape your beliefs. Your brain begins treating them as facts. Imagine hearing those words every single day. Eventually, you start acting as if they're true. Now imagine replacing those thoughts with something more constructive. Instead of saying, "I can't speak English," tell yourself, "I'm learning to speak English more confidently every day." Rather than saying, "I always forget words," remind yourself, "Every review helps my memory become stronger." This isn't about pretending you're already perfect. It's about giving your mind language that encourages growth instead of fear. An equally important habit is learning to recognize small victories. Many learners ignore their progress simply because it doesn't look dramatic. They wait for the day they become completely fluent, forgetting that fluency is built through hundreds of tiny improvements. Maybe today you understood a sentence without translating it. Maybe you answered a question a little faster than last week. Perhaps you remembered a word that you usually forget. These moments may seem ordinary, but together they are the foundation of real fluency. Keeping a simple learning journal can make these improvements much easier to notice. At the end of each day, write down one new expression you learned, one conversation you practiced, or one challenge you overcame. After several weeks, you'll have visible proof that your English is improving, even on days when it doesn't feel like it. Progress becomes much easier to appreciate when you can actually see it. Building confidence also becomes easier when you focus on familiar topics instead of complicated ones. Many learners believe they must discuss politics, business, or science to sound intelligent. In reality, most everyday conversations revolve around ordinary life: your work, your hobbies, your weekend, your family, your goals, or your daily routine. If you can speak comfortably about these subjects, you'll already be prepared for countless real-life situations. One technique that experienced learners use is practicing sentence patterns instead of isolated vocabulary. Rather than memorizing single words, learn complete structures that you can reuse in different situations. This reduces hesitation because your brain no longer has to create each sentence from scratch. Over time, these patterns become automatic, making your speech smoother, faster, and far more natural. Most importantly, remember that confidence doesn't appear overnight. It grows every time you choose practice over fear, action over perfection, and consistency over excuses. Every short conversation, every recording of your own voice, every small effort adds another layer to your confidence. Eventually, you'll realize something remarkable. Not that English has suddenly become easy, but that you have become stronger as a learner. At this point, one question remains. If mindset, daily practice, and consistency are so important, what does the journey toward fluency actually look like? The answer is simpler than most people expect. It isn't a dramatic transformation that happens overnight. Instead, it's a collection of small improvements that quietly reshape the way you understand, think, and communicate in English. Many learners spend too much time waiting for the perfect moment to begin speaking. They tell themselves, "I'll start when my grammar is better," or "I'll speak after I learn more vocabulary." Unfortunately, that perfect moment rarely arrives. The learners who improve the fastest aren't necessarily the ones who know the most. They're the ones who are willing to use what they already know. Every conversation becomes practice, every question becomes experience, and every mistake becomes another step forward. One of the smartest strategies you can follow is creating a simple learning system instead of depending on motivation. Motivation is exciting, but it changes from day to day. Some mornings you'll feel inspired, while other days you won't feel like studying at all. A good system removes that uncertainty. Imagine listening to English for 10 minutes every morning, speaking for 5 minutes every evening, and reviewing new expressions every weekend. None of these activities are difficult individually, but together they create a routine that continues even when motivation disappears. Another important lesson is learning to become comfortable with gradual progress. We often celebrate big achievements while ignoring the smaller improvements that make those achievements possible. Maybe you now understand more of a podcast than you did last month. Perhaps you no longer pause before introducing yourself. Maybe you can watch part of a video without writing subtitles. These are meaningful signs that your brain is adapting, even if fluency still feels far away. Fear will probably visit you more than once during your learning journey. You may feel nervous before speaking to a stranger, recording your voice, or joining an English conversation. That's completely normal. Confidence isn't something people are born with. It develops each time you face a challenge instead of avoiding it. Every successful conversation begins with someone who was once afraid to speak. There's also tremendous value in reflecting on your own learning. Instead of ending each week by asking, "How much English do I know?" ask yourself better questions. Which situations felt easier than before? Which new expressions did I actually use? What mistakes did I stop making? Reflection allows you to see progress that would otherwise remain invisible. It transforms learning from a source of frustration into a source of encouragement. Remember that language is ultimately about connection. People don't expect you to speak perfectly. They want to understand your ideas, your experiences, and your personality. A simple sentence spoken with confidence often creates a stronger connection than a complicated sentence spoken with fear. Real communication has never been about perfection. It has always been about sharing meaning. So, if you truly want to learn English faster, stop chasing shortcuts and start building better habits. Replace comparison with curiosity. Replace perfectionism with consistent action. Replace self-doubt with steady practice. These changes may seem small today, but over time, they completely transform the way you learn. Before we finish, take a moment to ask yourself one final question. What's the one belief that's been slowing your English journey? Maybe it's the fear of making mistakes. Maybe it's comparing yourself to fluent speakers. Or maybe it's waiting for the perfect time to begin. Whatever it is, decide today to leave that belief behind and replace it with one that helps you grow. Learning English isn't about becoming perfect before you speak. It's about speaking a little more confidently than yesterday. It's about showing up, practicing consistently, and trusting that every small effort is moving you forward. Progress may be slow at times, but every sentence you speak, every conversation you complete, and every challenge you overcome brings you one step closer to fluency. Thank you for spending your time reading and learning with us today. If you found this lesson valuable, keep practicing every single day, stay patient with yourself, and never underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. Your English won't improve because of one perfect study session. It will improve because you refused to give up. See you in the next lesson. Until then, keep learning, keep speaking, and most importantly, keep believing in your progress.